Hi, my name is Bonnie Yochelson, and I am partnering with Historic Richmond Town on a book about the Victorian photographer Alice Austen, whose collection of photographs belongs to Historic Richmond Town. The only monograph that has ever been written on Austen was published in 1976, so a new book is long overdue. I am happy to report that a couple of weeks ago I was informed that I received a fellowship for writing about Greater New York, which is sponsored by the Gotham Center, which is part of CUNY Grad Center. So I'm very happy to have that support for us, for myself, and for the project with Historic Richmond Town. I should say that I am recording this from a bedroom because I am trying to get out of earshot of my husband, who's working downstairs and is incredibly noisy. So that's why you see a bed and pillows and eaves of an old house. So the Alice Austen House is known to many Staten Islanders. It's a National Historic Landmark, and it's an LGBTQ historic site. It's perhaps less known to many people in Staten Island that her photographs are at Historic Richmond Town. So when Alice was 79 years old in 1945, she donated her collection of photographs to Historic Richmond Town, along with her family archive of documents and artifacts, where it has been safeguarded ever since. So to explain to you how my collaboration came about with Historic Richmond Town, I'll first tell you about my background. I am an art historian, and I specialize in the history of photography, and in particular in the history of New York photography, going back to many years ago when I was curator of prints and photographs at the Museum of the City of New York. And since then, I've curated shows and written books on New York photographers, including Alfred Stieglitz, Berenice Abbott, Jacob Riis, and others. And so what prompted my collaboration now was that several years ago, the curatorial staff here embarked on an epic cataloging project where all 7,500 prints and negatives by Austen, many of which had never been seen before, were not only cataloged but digitally scanned. So I was able, through access to the collection database, to see all of these pictures for the first time, with also the advantage of being able to search a database. So it's really allowed for great new kind of research. And so, it was perfect for me because my specialty is kind of taking large, complicated collections and studying them and trying to create a sort of narrative, craft a narrative from that kind of study. So, that's where we are. And so we agreed to collaborate. So it's been really, I've had just a fantastic experience working with the staff here. The curators, senior curator Maxine Friedman and curator Sarah Clark, have become close friends, and I love working with them, and they're so knowledgeable not only about the collection but about of Austen, but of all their collections and the history of Staten Island, which has been such a privilege. And an assistant who works for them, Carly DeFillo, has also become part of our team and has made a real contribution. And the other part of the community at Historic Richmond Town that's been incredibly wonderful to work with is Charlie Sachs, who I met years and years ago when I was at the Museum of the City of New York. He was a curator at South Street Seaport Museum, subsequently went to the New York City Transit Museum, and then retired home to Staten Island. He's on the collections committee here, And it's just been an honor, really, to get to know him and work with him. When he was here in the early 80s, he worked on Austen, and so he knows the collection and the problems that it presents, the interpretive problems it presents, and he also is a great repository of institutional history. So it's just been a pleasure to have him, to bounce ideas off of and fact check and everything else. So that's just been really, really great. So with every project that I do like this, one of the best parts of it is that I sort of retrace the steps of the photographer and go look at all the locations that they photographed, and try to imagine as best as possible, depending on how much change there's been to the site, what the photographer's challenge was. And so I'm just learning about Staten Island, and one of the highlights of the project so far was 2 summer field trips that Maxine Friedman and Sarah Clark and I took, basically retracing Alice's steps, looking at the places she photographed, learning the history of some things have changed, most things have changed, some of them have stayed the same. And so that was a real highlight. Another sort of big surprise was how rich and helpful is the family archive, which had been inventoried before, but has never really been carefully studied, and includes, major artifacts like family Bible that includes generations of births, deaths, and marriages, and portraits of ancestors, the kind of things you think of as being very important. And then remarkable things like Alice's collection of trade cards, which are basically advertisements for businesses that she collected on shopping trips to Manhattan. She was really, as a young teenager, obsessed with these trade cards. Her ice skates and her dance cards filled out with all of her partners in pencil, who danced with her at various social events. So there's just so much here that's really, really rich. Now, I've also had the chance to study the small but really important collection at the Alice Austen House. Under the leadership of Victoria Monroe, the house is doing really important advocacy work on focusing on Alice Austen's lifetime partnership with Gertrude Tate, which is a sort of welcome development in LGBTQ history. But the collection itself also is really important and an important complement to the things that Alice herself gave here at Historic Richmond Town. So it's really, really been wonderful to go through that material. And Christine Allegretti helped me there. She's in charge of the collection at the house and is doing really great work cataloging it and getting it under sort of intellectual control. So that's been a really good experience. So I still have a ton of work, ton of material to work through and to think through this book, and I've really been enjoying it, and I'm very grateful for all the people that have helped me. Of course, I'm very grateful for this fellowship, which will give me a big push toward writing. I'm hoping that when the fellowship period begins in September, that I will start writing. And also there's a desk for me at the Gotham Center, which I'm hoping I'll be able to go to, and I'm hoping that all of us can return to our desks by then. Thank you.